Hello everyone and welcome back to another reaction video. It's been a while since we react to Mr. Bones' analysis of the Primarchs, and today is very special because we have a Primarch who is going to be very interesting. Perturabo. And in this video is going to be Perturabo and the importance of kindness. If you like this video, click all those tiny buttons down below. Also, please hype the video as well. I don't know why is that a feature, but it seems to be very effective. So please do that as well. So without further ado, let's get into this.
Hi. Yes, every chance I get, I'm going to be using the Perturabo face. I just think it's really funny.
It
Reminder,
is.
and this is part 3 in a 20-part series I am doing in-depth analyses of the Primarchs in order of the legions. Do you need to have seen the other parts to understand this one? No, but it would make me happy. Of all of the private conversations I've been having with other individuals in the Warhammer sphere, I do find that a common thing that comes up, especially in regards to Primarchs, is my opinion of Perturabo, and my opinions on his legion as well, as I tend to have complex feelings about the two of them, and just their entire characterization throughout the fiction. There are a lot of things to learn with each of the Primarchs, and it's why I'm going to title each video with the same kind of format that you've been seeing so far.
And I think that's the best way because, like, I feel like everyone that was introduced to Warhammer 40k was because of the memes. I feel like that because everyone just get the idea of what the meme is saying and it translated to the lore itself. I feel like that's what people always get off of, which it's not a bad thing. It's just that people should start going more into these characters. Like I have. I thought Perturabo was nothing but a Reddit editor, but the more I dive into his like backstory, I was like, oh shit, this guy. No wonder he's very petty. I will do the same as well. But let's continue.
Can all understand immediately the purpose of the video and what the most key feature of that character's backstory is. I feel the title for Perturabo could actually imply a lot more than what you would think. So, what do I mean? Because Perturabo isn't exactly known for being a kind individual.
Oh
He's
no,
actually rather known for being a bit of a meanie poo
not
poo
at
head
all.
at the best of times. The book I'm going to be referencing for the majority of my points is going to be the Perturabo Primarch novel, because it actually covers a lot of the topics I find are most important for him. So, a good example as to how much of a meanie poo poo head he is, in that specific book, a messenger came to tell him that Olympia, the planet, had rebelled, which was his home planet if you're unfamiliar with it. So, when he heard
Oh
about
no.
it, he picked up the man and just started squeezing him by the shoulders until you had a nice glass of man juice on the floor right underneath him.
Pop him
And just
like a
crushed him
pimple.
into a pile of goo. It was gross. Yeah, apparently he had never heard about not shooting the messenger, but I digress. Before I get into
I
my
think he
thoughts on
did. I think he did, but I don't think he gave a shit.
Bravo. I just want to thank my channel members for supporting me. With your
Hey.
help, I am able to do this as a job.
And please
I
continue.
have so much actual fun doing these videos, so if you want to support me as well as gain access to additional content, then become a channel member today. So let's just get into it. We can interpret Perturaba as a character from numerous lenses, but the one I find the most humanizing of his entire story is simply put that he was failed by every single person around him in more ways than one. So he treated everybody around him as if they were a failure, like they were treating him.
Yeah.
Expanding on that, I think Perturabo is a very complicated and often misunderstood individual. I think he was a kind soul that just wanted to contribute to the world in his own way, but was forced to become a weapon of war by many individuals throughout his life. Let's get into it now. One of the most commonly brought up facts about Perturabo is that he is a shitty dad. Like, how he treats his legion is probably among the lower ranks of Primarch to Legion relationships I have ever seen in my life. Even Mortarion treats his Legion better than Perturabo did, and that dude looks like the damn Grim Reaper and drinks poison. A good example that a lot of people tend to cite is when he took control of his legion. Normally, the legions, once they get their Primarch, get a massive boost in morale and leadership just because they know where they get their traits from, which is cool. But it also has this weird proximity effect where the Space Marines will automatically listen to their Primarch to their own detriment. Now, it's not entirely a 100% level of control. There are quite a few loyalist Iron Warriors, or, well, there were, but when Perturabo took over the Legion, he saw that they had failed a mission or two recently, and instead of redoubling his efforts to make them a stronger Legion, he simply demanded they decimate themselves, removing 1/10 of the Legion's numbers as
Yeah.
punishment to prove they will never fail again.
And you can understand why people would not like him out of that action. You just, oh, you failed? Okay, I want to give you a lesson. Go kill each other. Like, come on. Rather than, learning your lessons and adapting to your failure, you instead, okay, you failed, you die. That's it. And for me, that really, is disgusting to say the least. But when I start to see more clips and reading more quotes from Perturabo, I start to realize that like he just became so conflicted. Like, is he an asshole or he's not an asshole? Like, it's so bizarre, really.
So these are the actions people see. They are the bitter and nasty things that Perturabo has been seen doing. And from a top-down perspective, from some brainlet, they can just say, "Oh, he bitter and mean." Oh
Exactly.
man, straw man arguments are great, but people tend to
That's what I
see
was
this
thinking.
and make the conclusion that he's just a mean, bitter man for the sake of being a mean, bitter person. And loosely, they can see that it was a product of his upbringing, but I very rarely see the argument brought up that there is a significant portion of reasoning behind why he does what he does, and it's a lot more tragic and a lot more sad than it is just being frustrated with an angry little man. I can guarantee you it wasn't just he was born this way, baby.
Oh
Because
no, no
I
one
find
is
the
born to be a
Primarchs are
monster.
very much a mixture of nature versus nurture, but
Mm-hmm.
nurture does tend to play a bigger part.
Which, by the way, after he said that, it reminds me of like the Viltrumites from Invincible. Well, who's winning, nature or nurture? Like, it's very sort of symbiotic in a way. Like, they're assholes because they believe they need to be assholes. It's in their culture, but once they start to experience like a true part of society, they start questioning everything, their belief, uh their hierarchy, their like everything. And he start questioning like, are we doing the right thing? Which I really like in season 4, episode, was it 3 or 2? I forgot, but it's when Alan and Nolan were searching for items that could help him against the fight of the Viltrums. And throughout the journey, he started to realize that, oh, I might have been a monster, and it's very unique. And I could see that with Perturabo as as well, because keep in mind the Primarchs do not age like we do. They age so fast. Like, I guess 1 year equals them to be like adulthood, I believe, but it's something like that. And they don't have the time and, the time and mentality to grow naturally, because the emperor just being a big old, like, what you call it, a big old, like, hmm, what's a good word? Because everyone has described the emperor as a perfect way. I'm trying to find a one unique way to describe him. I guess I could say that maybe he's like your boss at our job that you work, because he wanted things to go fast. He wanted things to to exceed as he expected. But because of that, he didn't realize that these sons, they're living things. And as living things, they will do certain things that you will not like. They will think certain things that you will not like. And you can see how that became one of the downside of the emperor. He thought this would be absolute, which it really wasn't. But anyway, let's just continue.
Perturabo expects the world around him to perform within a set boundary that is both logical and optimal. Because as a child, when he grew up on Olympia, that is the doctrine that he was set to live
Oh, he used to
under.
have
He was
hair?
given set rules to operate under, and as long as he performed to the best of his abilities and succeeded at them, which he always did because he was a Primarch, he would be continued to be praised for what he did. Now, let's not confuse praise with kindness, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. He was used by his adoptive dad, the tyrant of Locos, was shown an almost cold indifference outside of that
Hmm.
praise for his fact of just being a Primarch. His needs were only met on the basis of something you would show off as a great treasure. Perturabo was seen by his father as nothing more than a tool for war and conquest once he was of age. But here's the part I find most interesting, and that's that in Perturabo's free time, he actually spent most of his time making advancements in agricultural equipment,
Aw,
things to improve the lives of others around him. See, he had a few Primarch powers
that's
that
sweet.
separated him from his brothers, which a lot of Primarchs tend to have multiple, but the one I tend to focus on is simply put, he can look at most things and immediately know how to make them better in some way, shape, or form. Now, it depends on the situation because better is often not really defined by any strict means, but he would often try to improve tilling machines, tractors, to help move grains better, and so on and so forth. But his adoptive father kept moving him to focus more on war efforts, and eventually that was all he was going to work on until, well, now, which is a bit of a tragedy. It mirrors
Yeah,
a
it's
lot
pretty
of personal
sad.
accounts of artists growing up in restrictive households that
Oh,
had their
yes.
parents say that they can't work on this specific project. You need to learn how to be an engineer or a doctor or some shit. When you secretly just wanted to paint or maybe even just raise chickens or some shit. I don't know. But there is one individual that is incredibly important in his story, and it was the only person in his life to ever treat him with unbidden affection. There wasn't a back and forth in the same sense that he had with his stepdad and every other general that he ended up working with, where he would provide his services and they would provide him with praise. The only person who showed him
Okay.
kindness without any strings attached was his adoptive sister. Ah,
Oh.
shit. Hi, this is video editor Arthur. Yeah, I goofed. It's been a while since I've read the Perturabo Primarch novel, and I completely forgot that his sister's name was not actually Calliope, it's Caliphany. I got the two names
Oh.
mixed up because of there's a
Yeah.
D&D character that I've been interacting with. You know what? It doesn't
Don't
really
worry,
matter.
Bones. We
But
will do the
yeah,
same.
I forgot her name was Calliope for the entirety of this recording, and instead of being a competent individual, I'm going to just put this here and tell you all that, hey, while I was editing, I remembered that it's actually Caliphany and not Calliope. So whenever I say Calliope, it's actually Caliphany. Fuck this. Calliope, who treated
Yeah,
him
these
like
names
she
fucking.
would
The names are
any other
fucking
brother
awful.
and was just nice to him. But one drop of clean water in a mire is not going to immediately purify what is brewing. And when
Nope.
he had to leave the planet to join his actual father, that is when things started to worsen further, as he was treated the same, a tool to be used. Now, say what you want about the Emperor, but I will say it is also in Perturabo's hands at this point. When you put up this sort of posture that you can get something done and won't ever complain, you will be sent on the more difficult missions. So, not mentioning that he actually enjoyed being praised for his efforts or shown a bit of kindness, and not being open about how he felt about anything made him almost the perfect silent tool. Most of his brothers knew he was unhappy, but he never truly spoke out about it, or at least outside of his
Damn.
legion. The Emperor, when interacting with his children, tends to be a very force meets force kind of individual. So, because of that, he met Perturabo with the same kind of cold indifference that Perturabo puts out there. So, in the end, it makes things a bit harder to stomach, or at least incredibly sad, when he
But I feel like the Emperor wouldn't even care if Perturabo would have, like, tell him, I don't like this shit. Oh, excuse me. Hold on. Okay, I sneeze with. Oh wait, come on, sneeze. Okay, sorry. Yeah, but like I said, I don't think the Emperor would even give a shit on what Perturabo thinks because you know how he is. Really, he focuses on his plans rather for people's personal feelings. So it's it's complicated.
Returns to his home world of Olympia to find it has rebelled and forgotten
What?
why they served him. It ended with him going down to the planet and simply saying, "Burn this whole city to the goddamn ground." And that's what he did. They were a tool that lashed out and didn't fulfill their purpose, and therefore they were discarded like how he felt he would be if he didn't provide a purpose to everyone that asked of him. So he lashed out almost in a childlike rage that if you do not fall in line, you get the stick. Forgetting that you also need to put a carrot at the end of it for the whole analogy to work. This all
Yeah.
culminates further in the single most tragic part of Perturabo's life, when he accidentally kills his elderly sister Calliope. Now, she had become pretty withered in her old age since it had been 60, 70 years since the original time that Perturabo had been on the planet, but
Damn.
he could still see who she was, and she could never
Oh, look at
forgive
that
him for
art.
what he had become. Upon her death was the final step in his damnation. The road to damnation, in my mind, is like a ladder extending upwards, where every step you take on it causes the step behind you to snap and become unusable. At a certain point, you can
Oh,
still jump
yeah.
off
That's a
and
good
come
point.
back down to a safe level, but the higher you go, the harder it is for you to jump off without harming yourself. And at a certain point, jumping off means certain death. And this step was the final one in his mind. He could never come back. So, with all that in mind, I will pose to you a question with this character, being as intense and insane as he is. Why? Why did he do it? And why did he become what he was? Kindness and the lack thereof is my answer. To grow up with indifference is different from growing up with hate. Being hated your entire life can cause you to become gnarled,
Oh,
like an old dried up
foreshadowing.
tree where you will bend and break with ease. But when you grow up around people who treat you with a passive indifference, you learn to not care about the world around you and see it in only pragmatic and practical terms. Some Primarchs had a naturally kind soul, and I think that Bo is one of them. Just on the basis of how he responded to one individual who treated him with genuine compassion. The bitterness, the anger, and the sadness that is permanently affixed to Perturabo is there because every single person along the way failed him. And
Yeah, I feel I agree as well because by treating someone with kindness, they will be kind as well. If they don't, then they will be bitter. I mean, how else you think a lot of people are just so angry or bunch of jerks as you like continue your path really like you just witness this one person out of nowhere just being mean to you and at first you thought he would be just a bad person instantly like was he just made was he born this way and to an extent yes he was but he wasn't doing it like willingly. He done it because, well, everyone else had felt him, her, whatever. They just feel like they're alone, and because of that, they just, you know, lashing out. They just want everyone to share the same pain as they are, and they don't realize that they're just walking into this like tightrope of if you are aware of this, you can change. If you're not aware of this, then you will fall into this endless abyss of hatred and ranting and selfishness. And that's what I'm seeing with Perturabo as Mr. Bones explained it because the more he continues and the um the stairs analogy was actually pretty interesting. I do agree that it was something like that. But as he continued, he got to a point where it was all over. And that was his sister. Adopted sister. But I feel like sister more likely because she treated him with love and kindness. And when she saw him doing, genocide of his people, He just had just one response of just, you're a monster. I would presume that she called him that. And Perturabo just instantly killed her because that was the breaking point for Purdy. That was absolutely the breaking point. But let's continue.
And not even by his standards, they had all the chances in the world to show him genuine compassion when it was the most important lesson to teach him in the world, and they didn't. They either chose not to, and the only person who did died by his hands.
Yeah.
It's why Calliope's death hits so hard. She was his only anchor, and now that she's gone, well, he falls down the path of bitterness where he sees that he is the only one who can get any job done, which, when in close proximity to Fulgrim, is like kind of correct, but you get what I mean. I think kindness and showing genuine compassion is both the easiest and the hardest thing to do to someone that you know nothing about or care nothing about. A quote I tend to use is, "We
Oh
think
yeah.
too much and feel too little." If you're familiar with the film that came from, you're cool, I guess. Thumbs up. But the quote is especially applicable for those we deem as nothing more than a tool, or even someone that we dislike. We tend to find it really easy to latch on negative emotions to individuals that we find it socially acceptable to dislike. So the social standard for someone like Perturabo, who's known for being a grumpy curmudgeon, who's known for being a bitter man, who will do any job you give him, but also complain about it the entire time, makes it a bit of a self-perpetuating cycle where people will treat him like he is that, and therefore he continues to act like that. I find there is a point to be made about how we treat people we don't like, or treat people we see as having permission to treat like we don't like them. And I'm not here to make that point. I just think that it is easier to be kind than it is to be horrible to people. Because if you do not treat people kindly and you treat them with passive indifference at best and a kind of a malevolence at worst, you get Perturabo, a self-perpetuating cycle of people treating him like garbage, people not seeing the hurt he has, and thus he
Damn,
keeps
dude.
treating people like garbage himself. He just needed to be proven wrong once, shown that kindness and civility was the proper way of treating people, but he never was. And now he never will be, because if you aren't familiar, Perturabo, Peter Turbo, the man, the myth, the big sad himself, has ascended to demonhood and is angry forever at everyone. I relate to Perturabo, at least on the apathy thing, not the demon thing. That'd be rad, but like suck, but whatever. Because I moved around a lot as a kid, as my parents tried to find work to sustain their lifestyles as well as mine and my sister's. So when you show up and have obvious psychological problems like I did in childhood, it's easy for people to treat you like garbage, simply seeing that you're kind of the outlier. And I was someone who acted out a lot like Perturabo,
Oh.
and no one ever really saw the reason behind it. Now, I don't blame them for it. That's why I relate to Perturabo, where I can see the cycle of apathy and just indignance that comes with his existence, and I relate to that specific.
Oh, that's pretty interesting because I remember like bullies in elementary school, middle school, and I always treat them, like a bunch of assholes as well. But now I'm looking at it, I just think that the reason why they're treating like this is because society itself is, treating him, her like this, and it's very interesting. So, quick question: have you ever been a bullied or being a bully to someone? Because if you are, then you could be the reason why you like Perturabo because you experience the same thing that he's going. If everyone is treating me like crap, then I'll treat everyone like crap. It's basically like a cause and effect, and it's very interesting. I can see why a lot of people would like him.
part, I don't think I'm alone on that. I think there's a lot of people who can relate to growing up different,
Oh
growing up
yes.
weird in a world around them where people don't exactly hate them or show them any kind of malice, but just ignore them and feel left by the wayside. I think that is one of the most emblematic things to describe Perturabo as a whole, and that's what people tend to describe him as. He is bitter, hard to be around, but incredibly competent, and I have so many friends that are like that. They grew up socially awkward. They
Oh
grew up
yes.
with this kind of inability to acquiesce to social norms that made it so that it was hard for them to fit in. And they grew up jaded and bitter because of it, which kind of loops back to that analogy that I was giving before, where it can be both incredibly difficult and incredibly easy to be kind. But I am not here to tell you what you are supposed to do. I am just here to tell you my perspective on Perturabo and how I relate to him as a
Yeah,
person.
and I
But
feel like
what do
everyone
you
will
think
relate
about
to him.
Perturabo? Do you think he is an especially bitter person and it was in his genetics to do so because the Emperor is also kind of a sociopath? Or do you think he was absolutely destroyed by his personal upbringing and thus wasn't given much of a chance? Or maybe somewhere in between? Let me know in the comments.
Hmm.
I'm especially interested in him as a character. Also, remember to like and subscribe as it helps the channel. And before I go, if you think that this was a bunch of pseudo-intellectual bullshit, then wait till you get to Angron. I feel like I should start
Oh
offering free
yeah.
therapy sessions after I do that one.
Oh man, I can't wait to get to Angra. Now, I'm just doing these reactions order by order. But yeah, I feel like Mr. Bones made a good point that Perturabo just wanted to do things, normally, but because of, family dynamics, he was forced to be in a position that he did not like. So I'm in college and I've been studying how jobs can affect a family. More specifically, like families could force their children to take a role that they don't like or is the complete opposite of what they expect them to be. And this caused a lot of like tension, distrust, just every bad aspect of a family. And I could really see that from Perturabo. Um, and I really like how he thinks that, maybe Perturabo was never a bad person. It's just that because of these um moments, it took away the humanity. Not to mention the what was the ability to see imperfection also made it worse, which is just pretty saddening to say the least. And this is was very interesting. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will leave a link to the original video down below with Mr. Bones' channel. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.